only sports network in Detroit that starts with a W. You know, because we win. Woodward Sports, Detroit's winning sports network.
That will be on the show. So I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. And this is the day. This is the day where tides turn for franchises, selecting 5th overall. He hit on the last two, at least top 5 picks. We'll see if he can do it again.
Hey, I'm ready. Listen, we got
We're muted. We're good.
We're good now.
We have our special Woodward Pistons Table Talk crew in the building, joined by Sean Murphy, man. My gosh, Sean Murphy.
What up, though?
What up, though,
Sean.
bro?
Jeff, you beautiful bastard. Kool-Aid, you tall glass of beauty. It's so great to see both
Let's
of you.
rock,
Thank
man.
you guys so much for having me. Appreciate Woodward Sports, the family here. Always good to be back. So, yeah, man, excited for the draft tonight. I think a lot of things potentially can happen. And I think the Pistons are going to be at the center of a lot of moving and a lot of phone calls. I'm excited to see what Troy Weaver pulls off.
Boy, I am pumped up. Look, I got everything here, man. Lucky the teddy bear from the year that we got Cade Cunningham, man, the #1 draft pick. We got the jersey that we rock out with every year. And, of course, the banner and the Detroit Pistons basketball. But I think we got to thank some people.
Yeah, we do. I mean, especially to our wonderful biggest sponsor, Lady Jane's. Obviously, we host the studio out of their HQ here in Birmingham, Michigan. So shout out to Chad Johnson. Shout out to Lady Jane's. And again, if you need a fresh haircut, you know where to go. You go to Lady Jane's. It's wicked awesome. So shout out to Lady Jane's for all the support and just helping this, be possible.
Yeah. Thank you, Lady Jane's. But I am ready to get this draft started. It looks like it is getting underway here. And I'm excited. Look, there's a lot that can happen. There's already trades. There's already rumors. The Pistons, I guess the smoke has been around #5 for Asar Thompson. And
Yep.
I kind of want to just get your thoughts on it, Mr. Jeff Iafredi. How would you feel about Asar Thompson at 5 to the Detroit Pistons?
Obviously, I would love it. I think the conversation before, Troy sat down and actually talked to the media, you guys know how I feel. It's always been Tyler Hendricks for me. But Asar, if you look at what Troy specifically said about, I don't want to bunt, I want to go for the long ball, I think Asar Thompson, he's going to be probably available there at 5 for you. So it makes the most sense. Amin, I'm assuming, will be gone. I like Amin more. Obviously, I think we all agree there. But Asar doesn't mean he can't be a damn good player. So athletically gifted. I mean, like you kind of talked about at the heavyweights as well, I think you nailed it. Would you like to see him play against better competition for a longer period of time? Of course, but the intangibles, the physical tools, and just the way they play the game, both of them. Even though Asar plays more off-ball, they're both super intriguing. I mean, that's a definition of boom or bust to me, those two guys.
Yeah.
Incredible
definitely.
upside.
There are a lot of executives around the league, though, Jeff, that it's starting to come out that there's some executives who like Asar more than Amen. And apparently the Pistons might be one of those front offices as well. I mean, the fact that, Amen and Asar both have such high potential, I would say, we all would say Amen's probably the better athlete. But I think, as far as who's probably the better player day one, who probably has the better basketball instincts at this current time, it's probably Asar. And I think if you look at, what Troy Weaver talked about, where he's not looking to take the bunt, he's going to take the big swing. I think getting one of those Thompson twins is an absolute home run. And you look at, what they bring day one. Like, Asar is so twitchy and physical on the defensive end. His versatility, his ability to pass the ball, the ability and the potential that they have in the fast break with Cade, Ivy, and Asar is through the roof. And so, when you look at that, and then you also look at, other interests, you bring up Taylor Hendricks. Could Troy Weaver try to trade back in that top 10, potentially try to double dip in this lottery? I think that's something that looks very possible.
Yeah, because it's realistic possibilities and what we all want to happen. And Tris, I want your opinion on it, on the All-Star stuff. But for me, my sentiment, and I'll stay consistent with this, I don't think Taylor Hendricks will be drafted at 5 because of the narrative and everything surrounding Taylor Hendricks. Everyone talks about, well, I wouldn't take him at 5, but I take him at closer to 10. For me, and I'm consistent across all sports, if you like a player, you take him. So that's where I'm coming from. Now, if it's betting, if I'm putting every dollar in my wallet, every dollar in my bank account on who they'll take, I'm not going to say Taylor. But, of course, that's my guy. But, Chris, on Asar Thompson, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the reason that he's starting to climb over Amin, in particular with the Pistons, is the shooting. I mean, look, you just go through the NBA history, and you can't find a team or many teams in the last 15 years that one of their 3 best players wasn't an elite shooter. I mean, you're looking at Golden State, you're looking at Denver, you're looking at these teams that all had one of their 3 best players, if not more of their 3 best players, were high-level shooters. And with Cade and Ivy, they are good shooters, or you're projecting that they will be good to solid, but you need an elite, and that's why Asar fits much better with the Pistons than Amin, because they're both high-level athletes. They both have great feel for the game, and Amin might have a better ceiling, but it's more so with the ball in his hands. Where Asar, he's played off ball to his brother all the time, so he's used to that, and he's even thrived in that, winning some MVP awards. So I think there's a real reason why he is getting favored by some execs, and particularly the Pistons, because he's a much better shooter, and his jump shot is much further along.
Yeah, Chris nailed it.
Yeah. I like that. Chris, thank you again for being on the boards tonight. I appreciate you being here, man, and your takes as always. I want to be able to go to you guys as well on how do you feel about this team basically trading Bojan Bogdanovic for that number 10 pick, or for another shot at the lottery?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if there's a player you love, a guy like a Taylor Hendricks, possibly an Anthony Black later in the lottery, guys like Grady Dick, there's a lot of talent within this draft. And I mean, Kool-Aid, you asked Troy Weaver himself if he thought that this draft was as deep as the other ones that he traded into, that he did double dip, that he did go in.
Yep.
And he said absolutely he does. And I mean, guys like Taylor Hendricks, they could be guys who are on that board. You don't know where exactly guys like Jarris Walker could even get drafted either. So I mean, I think the biggest thing is the Pistons in particular play their cards very close to their sleeves. We know we know certain things, and we know players that they like. We know archetypes of what they're looking for. But at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to know truly until what transpires. I mean, I think it's pretty clear right now as far as what we know of what they're going to do at 5. But as far as a guy like Bojan, I mean, we saw with Jeremy Grant last year, they weren't willing to pull the trigger unless it was to go get someone they loved, which was a guy like Jalen Duren, right?
Yep.
If they believe in a guy like Taylor Hendricks so much, if they believe in a guy like Grady Dick or one of these guys in the middle of the lottery that they can contribute long term, I think you pull the trigger.
Yeah, and to Sean's point, too, last year, if it's a similar how it plays out, at least past 5, 6, it's very unclear where guys are going to go. And with Cam Whitmore's medical, the things coming out about his medical reports and scaring teams, I could see a scenario where one of those guys, whether it's Cam or anybody else, that Troy really likes, if you could trade 10, you'll be able to steal him just like you did Duren last year. So I think it's a great point. And I think it's a more of a possibility than probably people think. Because Bojan, we talk about players that we like. I like Bojan a lot. Love the fit. But he's a player that you would expect them to deal eventually.
And that's the reason why I wanted to ask the question, because we are coming up on something very, very different. Usually when we're talking about trades, we're not talking about the players that other NBA teams want on the Detroit Pistons roster, but we actually have quite a few of those players, I think, with Bojan. I think another name, I'm not looking for these guys to be traded. It's like you said with the Jeremy Grant deal. If it proves better for the team, and Troy said this at the pre-draft press conference, he will make that deal. But Isaiah Stewart, he's another individual who other teams want.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because these guys play valuable roles. Marvin Bagley is an individual that we look at more as expendable. But with Isaiah Stewart and Bojan in particular, they were brought, Bojan was brought to complement Cade Cunningham. So I'm hoping that if that's the case, that they find a trade partner for Bojan to be able to move this team forward and get a little bit cheaper as well, that it's somebody who can still kind of fill or fit that same role as an off-ball shooter for Cade Cunningham. What's up, Chris?
Is it too early in the Pistons' tenure to look at moving James Wiseman? Like, I look at him as another asset that maybe somebody talked themselves into the last 30 games of the season when they looked at him play, and he had some great performances. So I know, Kool-Aid, you're very plugged in. Have you heard anything on that front as James Wiseman, or are the Pistons kind of right now intent on keeping him and kind of seeing where he goes and seeing how much of last season or the last 30 games was really sustainable for him?
I think that they're still taking a look at James Wiseman. Obviously, if the right deal is there, Troy has shown that he's not shy to make it. But if I had to say in that pecking order of big men, Marvin Bagley, obviously Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, and then James Wiseman, I don't think James Wiseman is the one that's in any danger of being moved. Once you move a Marvin Bagley, and depending on how this draft goes, then that's when we start looking at where does James Wiseman exactly fit on the roster. But right now, I believe that they absolutely love his upside. And honestly, Troy talked about it. This team has to get some of those kind of 7-footers. They have to kind of be a little bit bigger team. And hopefully James Wiseman is someone who can provide that. I know the Warriors are kind of kicking themselves a little bit. Sean, what's your thoughts on it?
I think Wiseman's a guy that's safe at least to the deadline because you look at his contract, it's rather team friendly. This is still a guy who's missed a lot of basketball. And you talk about the opportunity to come in with a full offseason in the facility, in the program, with the likes of Dwayne Casey, Monty Williams, John Beilein, the people that they have in staff. I think with how much of an upside that he has, because I mean, let's not forget this guy was drafted number 2 for a reason, right? I mean, the guy's an absolute athletic freak. So I think there's still a lot of untapped potential there. I think you brought up Marvin Bagley. It's, his situation and future is much more uncertain. I think he has a contract that's way more movable. It's a contract that's pretty much an expiring next season, and even then it's only like $13 million per. You could look, I think that's a guy who could be a prime candidate for like a sign and trade for a guy like Cam Thompson, or Cam Johnson. Over in Brooklyn. But, I think overall, I think, yes, there's that logjam in the front court, and they'll definitely move players when it's time and when it's right. But I think with guys like Wiseman, I think you can afford to see what's there and what you have.
And by the way, shout out to Mr. Jones, always supporting the platform, supporting everybody. He donates $10. Appreciate it. He said, I think it's safe to say Ermanni Bates is the number 1 pick. Is that, can we officially say that? Is it safe? I'm just making sure.
Ermanni Bates, you know what? That's an interesting name to even bring up. I get the fun.
I'm interested to see where he falls tonight.
Yeah, that's where I'm interested. That's one of those names where I'm like, yo, do the Pistons just take a flyer if they find a way to pick up like 4 second-round picks like they did one year? Is he a guy that you think falls to the second? I've seen people say he's a for sure second round. I've seen people say, no, he's for sure first round. How are you guys feeling about Ermanni Bates?
Well, it's not the same exact situation. It's different, but the way I feel is the same, and how I think it'll play out is the same. With Jalen Carter for the Lions, I love Jalen Carter, wanted Jalen Carter, but the character concerns, and I always wondered, is Brad willing to take a chance on Jalen, even if he's there at 18? Let's just say if he was, because is the character concerns, does that overshadow the talent? Now, Ermanni Bates, talent-wise, 100% behind it. Now, does the character issues overshadow the talent? That's the same thing I have with Ermanni. I wouldn't be shocked, and I don't think this will happen, but if Amani's there at 31 and Troy don't take him, again, it's not that everyone would freak out. How can you pass on Ermanni Bates if there's legit concerns? Because, again, Troy said it himself. If you're going to put this locker room against anybody else in the NBA, putting somebody like Ermanni Bates, who's known in the narrative behind him, not sure if it's true, I don't know him personally, selfish, only for himself, that type of stuff, then no, I don't think Troy is going to take a chance on a guy like that. I don't. But we'll see.
He also didn't grade that well at the combine either.
Yes.
Yeah, and not that you want to put everything into that, but it's like when you have character questions, yes, his game is stellar, he is a guy that can hoop, but at the same time, when he doesn't grade that well at the combine, you already have questions about his size, his overall physicality, and how that translates to the NBA. I'm not saying I'm betting against the guy. I'm just saying I would expect him to be drafted in the 40 to 50 range tonight.
Yep. All right, listen, we have a very special guest that is joining us, Mike Curtis of the Detroit News. He is their Detroit Pistons beat writer. Brother, I appreciate you for giving me the time. I know it's going to be a busy night for us all as the Pistons are going to get busy, man. Get busy. How are you doing tonight, Mike?
I'm doing good, man. I'm here at the Pistons practice facility here in Midtown Detroit. Just getting ready on the draft. All the media is filed in. We're getting ready. And I'm ready for an exciting night.
And Mike, thank you for joining us, by the way, number one. And everyone go check out Mike's work. He does great work. And I've been following him, especially throughout this time period. Well, we need you the most, Mike. We do. We need you so bad during this time. And again, I want your opinion on the Ausar Thompson discussion. And again, for a prospect like that, does what Troy said about, I don't want to bunt, I want to go for the long ball, does that not fit Ausar Thompson pretty perfectly if he's there?
It definitely fits. Just one, because he's a player who has tremendous upside. We all know what he can do as a playmaker. We know what he can do attacking the rim. Him and his brother, Amen, they're kind of similar players. They're not the best shooters, but Detroit kind of has plenty of that when you look at Bojan Bogdanovic. You look at the way Alec Burks shot the ball, and Jaden Ivey wasn't too bad for a rookie in his first year, right there around 35%. So you have the shooters. You also Isaiah Livers, one of the best shooters on the team. So you have the shooting, so you don't have to worry about that from that standpoint. But Asar Thompson definitely has tremendous upside, and he could be one of the best players in this draft.
Now, Mike, I got to follow up to that real quick, too, about Troy Weaver. And again, we know this man loves to wheel and deal. We know when opposing GMs get a phone call from Troy Weaver, they don't like to answer it. We understand this. But in this draft, where are you percentage-wise on the option Troy has to trade back up into the lottery to select a second time? Where are you at with that? More confident or less confident?
Talk about it, brother.
Yeah. So when I left his pre-draft presser, he had a lot of hints as saying, like, we're being prepared for every scenario. We're turning over every stone. We're going to vet all our options. And I noticed when he was talking about the potential at 5 and the potential at 31, he didn't say anything about a player. He said we like the value at that position. So everyone knows that it's pretty valuable picking at number 5 and picking at 31 because it's essentially a late first rounder. So I think it's more likely, I'll say. But if they do keep a pick, that'll be interesting as well.
Yeah, definitely. And look, Mike, I know we talked on the Woodward Pistons podcast this week about some players that might be coveted or, players that other NBA teams might like. You gave your 3. How do you feel about that? Are there any more that you would add if you want to kind of rehash that? And if there's any others that you think could find themselves potentially in a trade?
Yeah, my initial 3. Are you saying on the Pistons roster?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. So Marvin Bagley, obviously. Also Bojan Bogdanovic is also one, an obvious one. And then one who I was kind of hesitant, but he does have value, and that's Isaiah Stewart. We know there were calls about him through Celtics, so we could see.
It's going to be an interesting night, brother. It's going to be an interesting night. And what do you mind? What are your plans tonight covering this team?
I'm going to be writing until my fingers break off.
See that? That's exactly what Rod would say. I feel like it's the same thing. The work ethic, baby.
Hey, Mike. Listen, brother. I enjoy you. Any last words on the draft?
No, just enjoy it, man. Get your popcorn ready. It should be a fun night.
Ooh,
hey.
I like that. Mike Curtis of the Detroit News, Detroit Pistons beat writer. Did you guys have any more questions for him before we let him go?
No, I think you covered it. Mike, go do a great job as you do always.
Yes, sir.
Man. Have fun. And by the way, what's the environment over there? What's the environment over there? Is everyone getting hype? Is it getting loud? What's going on over there?
Not exactly, but the media is here, so we're getting prepared.
Yes, sir. Let's go.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more action going on at LCA.
Yeah, LCA is gonna be popular, definitely.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Thank you, brother.
Wish I could hear you, Mike, but you're a beautiful man. I love you. You're a beautiful specimen.
He gave you a tap, brother.
He's not lying.
He's not.
Mike's great, man. He does great work.
Does great work, man. Definitely check him out. I know he's going to have at least 2, 3, 4 articles probably by the morning. And also check out woodwardsports.com where we're going to have articles. You're going to be able to find the latest clips and the latest on the shows as well. Stay tuned there. We're going to have extensive coverage on all of this. And also follow From Half Court. The work. I appreciate the work that you, Sean, and Troy do over there. It's great NBA work. It's great Pistons coverage as well. And then don't forget about Woodward Pistons, where we're probably going to go live a little bit after the draft, just to kind of recap.
Sir.
Definitely. But how you guys feeling? You guys pumped?
Oh, I'm ready.
We're just, about 10 minutes outside this draft?
Well, this is one of the best days in the calendar as far as the NBA year goes. I mean, the amount of action that can happen, the amount of optimism that it brings, but also like when you have a guy like Troy Weaver that's drafting, I no longer am afraid going into the draft. I'm actually excited about the talent that we can get.
What Sean just said is I wish I had a ding 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 button. That's spot on because it's not just the NBA draft, it's who's leading the ship, who's the captain of the ship. I like where they're at right now, and I'm excited. Troy Weaver makes it more fun, not just because of the selection, and that majority of the time he's going to get it right, but the other part of it, which is the unpredictability of Troy Weaver, and he always does something. He's got multiple tricks up his sleeve.
And he said it, man. He always goes in with the chamber loaded. He's an aggressive mindset GM. This is what he does. He goes in, he tries to just have the fireworks always going. And I don't know how this stuff happens, but we really or rarely hear anything beforehand. It's just fireworks. And honestly, that's what you want out of Troy Weaver. I think that's why you have him here for a draft like this one. The first one, I know that a lot of people, the Killian, Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, some people are mixed on that draft class. In a redraft, a lot of those players will go higher, but I understand when you're missing on Tyrese Halliburton, man, people are just they're gonna hamper on that one. But I believe since that draft, his second one, his third one, and I believe tonight he has an opportunity to really show who he is and kind of stamp and lean towards these trends, this aggressive nature, this I like my players, I'm going after my players. This is why you have a Troy Weaver. And he spoke to it. We continue to talk about his connections on the scene as it relates to being able to scout and to evaluate and to know these players. And he spoke to that in his pre-draft press conference about being on the scene in D.C., being a guy who helped not just usher Carmelo to Syracuse, but then years later, another wing in Jeremy Grant. Being on the scene, he knew Isaiah Stewart and Sadiq Bey before he drafted them and understood these are guys who are probably a little bit lower. Jalen Duren as well. So it's like, since that first draft, Troy Weaver has only shown steady improvement. And it's not like gradual. It was just like instantly straight up. And I'm happy that Troy Weaver's our GM.
Yeah, this is the draft he was brought here to do, for lack of better terms. When you don't have luck go your way, when the lottery ball, like when the ping pong balls don't bounce in your favor, you need a general manager who's going to go and make your own luck, because that's what the best franchises in this league do. The Denver Nuggets didn't have a number 1 overall pick on their team. They had a second round pick. The highest pick they had was Aaron Gordon at 4, but even then they weren't the ones that made the pick. They went and traded and acquired him when they were ready to. The reality of it is, Troy Weaver went and made his own luck in these drafts when the ping pong balls didn't bounce their way. So you talk about the fact that we've been able to get multiple players through each of his draft classes that have been all rookie each and every year that have been able to make an impact. You look at the fact that Troy Weaver has that, but in addition, of all the teams that that fell or that could have fallen in this draft class or in this lottery, the Pistons are the ones that were the most prepared or the most equipped to. Like if the Hornets fell to 5, there would be fire in the streets. There would be like absolute chaos. But like for the Pistons, you still have Cade Cunningham, you still have Jaden Ivey, no matter what happens there. So the fact that not only are you in a position, again, I know after the funeral of not winning that pick, I know it felt really tough getting to 5, but I think people are opening their eyes and realizing, wait a second, there are guys here that can be studs, like Asar Thompson, Jarris Walker. A lot of these guys can be all-stars multiple times over. And so, at the very least, the Pistons are primed to get a good NBA player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what you want out of this 5 to 9. As I continue to look at it, obviously, those first 3 draft picks, they've kind of separated themselves this entire draft process. But after that, there are a lot of guys that kind of have like similar measurables, similar athleticism, similar positions. And right now, it's just about how does Weaver see these guys fitting with the Pistons, especially on the court, off the court, in the community. He's a big culture guy. He's a big fit guy. And they're trying to have this kind of program, family-like atmosphere. So it's going to be interesting to see which way they go. Whether it's a trade, whether it's a pickup, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and again, guys, for everybody tuning in right now live, we appreciate every single one of you. Leave a like on the stream if you haven't already. If you're watching on WoodwardSports.com, check out all the amazing merchandise, articles, and so much more. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're not subscribed, I'm shocked. But again, thank you guys for tuning in. The draft's starting very shortly right now. They're showing all the prospects that showed up with their wonderful families. It just showed Anthony Black. You got Derek Lively there, the second as well. So starting soon. Now it's heating up. Now we got 5 more minutes, and now it's game time.
Did you guys see Grady Dick's suit? His
solid.
Yeah, he showed up with the drip.
That dick was dripping. That dick was dripping. Wait, what? Oh, hold up. No, Grady Dick was dripping. Sorry. That's my bad. That's on me.
Something tells me that was intentional. I don't know what, but something just tells me. I don't know what.
Yeah, okay. We'll move on there.
It's June.
Oh, man. Let me get draft ready. Let me get draft ready, man. Sheesh. Hey, listen, we got the Billups jersey on.
Yes, sir.
Let's rock. And look, last year, we sat here and we continued to cover it once the Pistons fell to 5, and we said, man, we've just missed out on Jaden Ivey. We said if there's an opportunity for us to get Jaden Ivey, we're going to need some teams to do some funny stuff. Is there a player that you can foresee at all falling to the Pistons because a team similar to Jaden Ivey just passed on him?
If there's any guy that could fall for whatever stupid reason, it's Brandon Miller. It like that's probably been the name that's had some really weird buzz. I still think he's going to number 2 overall to the Hornets. I know that they're having some last second thoughts, but at the same time, I just don't see a reality where they don't go that direction. And assuming the Blazers have their pick of Scoot, they're going to take Scoot. I know there's reports that they really liked Amen Thompson as well. I just don't see a reality where you can take that much of a project, especially if you're hoping to keep Damian Lillard, which is something that they're trying to do. They want to reportedly thread the needle, which good luck with that. But like the reality of it is like, I just a lot of times, you kind of stir up and wonder if there's going to be any drama at the last second. I honestly think as of right now, I think that top 3 or even top 4 is pretty set.
Yeah, I would agree with Sean there. I think Brandon Miller, if you look at the top 5, Brandon's the only one with character concerns. So I think that factors into it. Talent-wise, Brandon's talented, Amen's talented, Scoot's talented, Victor's Victor. He's in a whole other stratosphere. But regardless, Sean's spot on. I think Brandon would be the one, although I don't think he will. I don't think there's a chance in hell he falls to 5. But if there's anybody, it'd be even maybe Amen because of Asor or just simply you're dumb. I mean, I don't know.
Which by the way, it
would have to be just Brandon.
Which by the way, reportedly, the debate in Houston is no longer Amen versus Cam Whitmore. The debate in Houston apparently turned to Amen versus Asar. So, just to give you an idea of how highly teams are thinking of Asar, I know at first we really looked at Amen as the consensus runaway number 1 guy between the two, but both of these guys can hoop. Remember now, it was Asar that won team in league MVP those 2 years. It wasn't Amen. Yep.
And listen, you're right. Amen was the one that I was like, cool. He's looking like he's going to be somebody the Pistons are going to want on the roster. As we start to get into our draft coverage, shout out to Resball Pod, Steve of our Woodward Pistons Table Talk. Man, listen, he got us trained up on a lot of these prospects. He's a sicko, bro. He already started on 84 prospects for next year's draft, bro. So shout out to Steve, man. You guys can find this stuff, Resball Pod. But he was telling us that Asar Thompson
insane.
Was the guy. He was like, listen, his ability out of the twins, he said his ability, his versatile ability, his ability to play make. He played more as a wing, which was more of a better fit for the Pistons than at the current time of guard. Right now, obviously, they're both 6'6", 6'7", and you try and figure out how their creative styles fit. But Troy did state at one of his other, I think the exit interviews, that he would take 5 creatives on the team. He didn't say necessarily point guards, but when he stated that, since that point in time, Asar Thompson has just been the person that kind of has fit that, and Jarris Walker as well to another degree.
Look at the future of the NBA, man. I mean, Anthony Black, 6'7", point guard. This is where it's heading, especially now with the modern NBA. So for Asar and Amen, I know. There's I guess you're pulling at strings by separating them. The biggest thing is, Amen played with the ball majority of his life, so whatever team he's going to go to, he's going to have an immediate impact. Asar has never played without his brother. Same with Amen, but Amen's always had the ball mainly. So Asar playing away from his brother, playing off ball with the shooting concerns. I think he's only a 66 free throw percent shooter?
Yeah, 66%, yeah.
66% from the free throw line. I mean, it is a little concerning. I mean, when you look at shooting and progression, you look at typically the free throw line. But regardless, those 2 guys, man, they're the most intriguing prospects to me, obviously besides Victor. Those 2 guys are super intriguing. But one more prospect that I throw in there that I don't think 5 he'll be there, but I think could fall a little bit if Troy trades back into the top 10, and maybe you consider him, maybe you don't, who knows, but Cam Whitmore, just because of the medical concerns. But other than that, I think he's going to be gone, most likely by even 10 if you're taking him. So this draft, man, it's lining up. We do this every year. It's always top heavy, and then you get through it, and you're like, well, actually, there's a ton of great players in this draft.
Yeah.
I feel like this happens every year.
Yeah.
Last year, what was it? Jabari, Paulo, and Chet, and we're like, Ivy's pretty damn good too.
Because you immediately look at the draft class and you compare it. You always just compare it to the 03 class, no matter what. It's like, well, is there a LeBron in this class? Is there a Zion? Is there a generational talent? Oh, no? All right, well, then that class is ass. And it's like, well, no. The reality of it is, even though you didn't win the number 1 overall pick, there's still a levy of talent. And again, we focus on super superstars. This is a star-driven league, absolutely. But it's role players who win championships. For the Nuggets, it was guys like Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. You know, like you have to build out the rest of your team, and you do it through the draft.
Yep. Yeah, especially in this draft. I've said it a couple different times, and Lindsey Hunter, Darren McCarty on Big D Energy, shout out to them. They said that this feels like more of a depth draft. You know, you have the ability to rely on Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and you still for now have guys like Isaiah Stewart, Bojan Bogdanovic, cap space, and the ability to add more. Hey, go in here and fill out this roster any way that you can with as much young talent. You know, if you have an opportunity to go in and stay at 5, and then also get a couple more picks like we've all kind of been on this bandwagon for, go ahead and do that. You know, I don't think that this is the draft to be excited for necessarily, oh my goodness, we're looking for a star. I think that was last year with Jaden Ivey. We needed that to happen. We needed a guy to pan out that way.
Yeah.
But once you get that, it's similar to like when we got Cade Cunningham, we knew now we can complement around him. We don't have to find that connector. Now that we have star A, star B, and Jalen Duren, who we hope is star C, then let's go out there and find some young talent that's looking to just work hard, man, work their tails off, and just go full-fledged. And honestly, some guys that have that defensive knack and are defensive-minded. I'm hoping Troy gets out here and is honestly true to the trends and gets this thing going, man. I'm ecstatic. You see, I got the garb on, we got Lucky, I got the cape on, man. Let's rock, man.
Well, and it's like even if Asar is like, you know, like he could still be a star very much, but like, you know, he could very much be that like third player on a winning team, like, you know, very like akin to like an Aaron Gordon, who's a guy who is like an all-star level talent, a guy who is extremely versatile and can do a lot of different things, a guy who was drafted to be a number one guy on his own team and could have done that on a Eastern team in middle if he wanted to, but he accepted like that lesser role. He accepted doing a lot of the dirty work. And, you know, Asar Thompson, you know, a lot of the comparisons he's gotten, you know, Andre Iguodala is a guy that, you know, we talked about that comp earlier on the Woodward Pistons stream earlier today. A comp I like even better for Asar Thompson, Andrew Wiggins. And he can turn into an Andrew Wiggins, especially that Golden State Warriors Andrew Wiggins that, you know, that was such a lockdown on the defensive end, but also could hit some shots and really get you a bucket if needed. Like, if you can get a guy like that, you take that every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, you do. Especially how athletically gifted these dudes are. And also, to kind of go back to Kool-Aid, the point you were making about the whole BPA versus fit thing. And I think this is the first season that I'm more pulled between both. Because in prior drafts, yes, you want to get the star player. You got Cade. You got Jaden Ivey. I think this draft is kind of in between both ideologies. You want to look for the best player who has the highest upside, but I think fit has to be factored into that equation at some point, especially now with Monty. Like, we don't have time to just let him figure it out. Like, I want to I believe in Ivy, I believe in Cade, I believe in what they can be. Start surrounding these guys with the best fit, also with high ceilings. There has to be some sort of pull. You can't just go all high ceiling.
There you go. Because whenever people just say, oh, just get the best fit, well, that's what got the Pistons into this doldrum of the last 15 years. Of just, oh, well, we have to get Stanley Johnson, and then we're not going to get any more wings. And it's just like, what are we doing? You know, that's why I like the fact that Troy didn't rest on his laurels. He got Killian, he went in, got Cade the next year, went in, and he got Jaden Ivey. And when he had big men, he had just given Marvin Bagley the deal. Did that stop him from going and getting, you know, Jalen Duren? No.
Not even a little bit.
Did it stop him from going and even getting James Wiseman? Not even a little bit, man.
No.
Not even a little bit. What's up, Chris? I see you in there.
It did stop him, thank God, from getting DeAndre Ayton, getting Jalen Duren. So that was a good thing. But no, you guys nailed it. Like, this draft is going to reflect how highly Troy and this organization views the core three, because that's always been the argument of, okay, do you take the best player available or do you take the guy that fits the best? And so if you're going with a fit player like a Taylor Hendricks, that shows that Troy believes, hey, you know what? We have 3 all-NBA caliber players on our team. We certainly know Monty thinks that Duren is an all-NBA caliber player, and now we just need to surround them with the right pieces. Like, this is the conversation I was having with my guy, shout out Tailgate Wins. We were having a conversation about who you draft and swinging for the fences. Troy Weaver talked about swinging for the fences, going for a home run in this draft. And you have to, like Jeff said, thread the needle and go for a high ceiling, but also a prospect that fits the team. Because ultimately, if you're going for a high ceiling, but they don't fit the team, they're not going to reach that ceiling. Because in order to reach a ceiling, you have to be in an environment that fits you and that suits you. So it has to make sense.
Yeah, 100% agree with him.
Definitely,
100%.
definitely. I'm glad you brought up that. It saved us from DeAndre Ayton. I remember we were
That's a
doing
great
the
point.
shows
You
with
dodged that
Rod,
train.
and we were like, man, it got to the point when we were talking about on the table talk, Sean, like, do we really want Ayton? I guess if that's the best available option, we'll do it. And when we got Duran, all of us were like, woo, glad that's over. And it was like, yes, we got our center for the future, man. I was ecstatic about it.
Well, yeah, that's that awkward NBA dynamic where, like, if you have the opportunity to get a number one level talent, you kind of like have to take it if it comes to you. But at the same time, when you have a guy like Troy Weaver who can identify those guys deep in the lottery, like the Jalen Durans of the world, you know, that's what it makes a difference.
I just have to say this now. I love this because the NBA draft is on as we speak, and the Spurs, it gave them the clock.
Riveting.
And that clock stopped within 5 seconds.
Yeah, I mean,
send it up.
I mean, we don't.
Victor.
I mean, yeah, we don't gotta waste any time here. Like the Spurs knew from when they won the lottery. They were like, huh? Oh yeah, it's Vic.
I wonder if you could change the rules and just book him to San Antonio. We'll start at 2.
Yeah.
Just book him there, man. Like, there's not a conversation.
I'm pretty sure, like, if you put $1,000 on Vic at one point to go number one overall, you would win $10. Like genuinely.
Hey, like Peyton Manning said, you can't go broke taking a profit. So, hey, $10.
That's a
Hey,
bar.
am I right, Chris?
That's a bar.
That's a bar. I
That's
know.
a bar.
Man, that's a
$10.
bar.
Hey,
That's
$10.
about with the shades on too, with the Troy Weaver shades on too.
Yeah.
Let's rock, man.
Yeah.
Let's rock.
He's up to
It's
something.
a cool night. Like we said, they actually get to be able to draft for depth and a lot of it if they want to tonight. Like, that's a good place to be. I know a lot of people are worried about the fact that they had 17 wins this past season. How can they make a jump? Remember, if we go back just a season ago, when they were coming off that 10-14 stretch in games that Cade Cunningham played in post All-Star break, that's been the best stretch of basketball in the Troy Weaver era. It's been the most promising basketball in Pistons, I think, like the last decade, if you want to say. And Killian Hayes was hooping. Sadiq Bey was coming off the 50-point game. And there was hope for this team coming into the season after getting Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duran, but the injuries derailed that.
Yeah.
I do believe this team has a chance to kind of get back to the expectation, or even not a little bit more, that they set for themselves at the beginning of last season.
Yeah, that's a point. Like, you got to look at this team. This team did win 17 games, and this team was one of the worst teams in the league. Like, there is no argument, there is no debate in that. But however, it's not really a 17-win team to me when you look at the fact that Cade Cunningham was out for most of the season. And when he did play, he wasn't at his best. And let's be honest,
For a stretch, he was really freaking awesome, though, man.
He was.
But on one leg.
On one leg. Again, it's not a knock against him, but he also had games where he was inefficient due to, obviously, the injury
Right.
and the toll that it took on him. But the point being is that you have obviously losing Cade early in the season and for most of the season. But then on top of that, you know, that stretch, the Pistons were tanking. They were absolutely tanking. They were playing guys that only us in this room could name. Like, if we're doing a game,
Shout out Eugene Omarui.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Like, so this team really could have, if they were trying to the end, they could have won 20 to maybe 22 games. So you got to look at it as it's not exactly a 15-win improvement to get to 32. It's more like, you know, there's a lot of factors that make this team not as bad as 17. Not saying they were anything close to good, but they weren't as bad as 17.
What's the graphic that we saw going around? Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duran, Isaiah Stewart, Bojan Bogdanovic. They didn't play any minutes together. That's the squad, though.
Yeah.
But we can't judge this team off of not having seen that. And Troy Weaver spoke to that. He said, we actually like the guys we have on our squad. We know we didn't win many games, was a quote, but we actually like our lot in life.
Yeah, and when Cade was playing, they had the worst bench in the league, but that was because they had guys on their bench that were out due to injury. And then when Cade got injured and the bench guys came back, they had the number one bench in the league. And so they never actually got all those guys together. If they did, I think we're looking at like a 28, 29 win season rather than, 17. But, you talk about as well, like, the whatever type of swing Detroit can make. I think an underrated aspect of the swing that they get to make tonight is that whoever they're picking gets to come in and they're going to be coached and developed by Monty Williams,
Yes.
Dwayne Casey, John Beeline. That room, that building is
Yes.
stacked. And then you also
Great
talk
point,
about some of the
Sean.
great assistants that have come in as well. Steven Silas, Jarrett Jack, the great defensive mind that was formerly of the Pacers for years and just of the 76ers that, is one of the best defensive minds in basketball.
Burke.
I'm blanking on his name right now.
Dan Burke.
Dan Burke.
Yep. Thank you. Yep.
Thanks,
Like,
Rich.
it's an absolutely stellar staff. And, the fact that they get to come in and work with, such great basketball minds, but such great minds in basketball development, I think it sets up, for a very, very successful rookie season for whoever's coming in.
And I just want to start now. The draft is starting. Adam Silver's going up to the podium to make the selection. It's funny. Bobby Marks put biggest team needs. Number 1, Victor Wembanyama. Number 2, point guard. It's that simple. I want to get to some of these comments.
Wait, they drafted Wemby? What?
Shocker.
Yeah,
Shock
that
and
man.
awe.
$10
Holy
richer, baby.
guacamole.
Hey,
$10
Chris,
richer.
what I tell you?
Got me a nice hot
Yeah,
ready
just-
on the way home
Yeah,
today.
just got that 1,010 payout, baby.
Hey, Chris, large pizza on me, baby.
Hey.
Large pizza on me.
Man,
Hey,
you
man,
could get
you got
almost
it like
you could
that.
get
You got
almost
it
a
like
sub
that.
from Subway with that, man.
Man, look at the
Almost.
people.
Now.
Yeah.
They raised the prices, right?
Yeah.
The people are
Frickin'
chiming.
inflation.
The people are chiming in here. We got Dante Massey, R.J. Graham. We got John Lord. Shout out to everybody. Theo99.
You said John Lure?
No, not John Lord.
Pistons legend John Leward.
Oh, okay.
Shout out to him. CB. We got Steve
Talk about highway
Wilds.
robbery.
Again, everybody. Mr. Ray, as always,
Mr.
joining the
Ray,
chat
shout
thread.
out
Shout out
to
to everybody,
the
man.
regulars,
Don't forget,
man.
leave a like on the stream. Try to get to 100 likes soon. But again,
Yeah.
everybody tuning in, we appreciate you. They're going to go on to the second pick very soon. So we're getting closer and closer.
Yep,
Closer and closer.
Very close.
Charlotte is about to Charlotte. We will see, which direction they decide to go into.
That's what
I
we're
for
talking
one,
about.
I'm glad Woj isn't live tweeting the picks this year. By the way, I'm sure Shams is not doing the same courtesy because he has to break everything. But I hate this whole leaking the draft before it happens thing, because why are we tuning in if you're leaking the pick before it happens to begin with? Like, what's the point of the television of it all?
It's a shame, man. But I want to go back to something you talked about, bro. When you brought up the coaches and the coaching staff, and honestly, just the basketball minds from just the top of this organization in the front office down to even just the development staff, like guys just like Jarrett Jack just being around. The Pistons have done a complete 180 on their basketball room, and I absolutely love it. I love what they're doing right now. Think about, we talked about this before, think about the staffs and the development staffs that guys like Andre Drummond and Stanley Johnson were drafted into versus what these guys are being drafted into right now. It's just night and day, and I think that's the reason why you actually go out there and give yourself as many shots at these young, coachable, moldable, ready to just come in and do whatever you say, coach players. Because we got the right group of guys. And honestly, it's not like they're just sitting around. We heard the players this year multiple times. I sat in press conferences where they talked about what John Beeline is doing for them.
Yep.
Jaden Ivey talked about the fact that he was able to go and approach John Beeline about midway through the season. We all just think about three-point shooting Beeline. He said, no, I was able to go and actually address my defense with Coach Beeline. Cade Cunningham said he's actually working out his three-point shot. He said when he got to the NBA, it got a little flattened out, and that some of these coaches are helping him get it together. This is an awesome asset to have.
By the way, can I drop a little tidbit on Cade Cunningham real quick?
Hey, let's
Drop
go.
it.
All right,
bro.
well,
leave it there.
A little birdie told me today that there might potentially be interest from Team USA for Cade Cunningham to play with them in the World Cup this summer.
Sauces.
Wait, do they do have eyeballs, correct?
Yeah, sources.
Ooh.
Eyeballs, listen, eyeballs, you watch Cade play, that man deserves to play for Team USA, man. As long as he's
It's a
100%
connector,
healthy,
man.
we know the skills there. So
Yeah,
that
yep.
doesn't surprise me at all. It was coming eventually.
Yeah, 100%.
Ivy in the future, probably happen for Ivy. as well.
And so, it sounds like he sounds like he's been doing a lot of individual work, should be doing some 5-on-5 stuff soon. So, yeah, man, I mean, you talk about the type of comeback that he can have, what it would mean, even if he doesn't necessarily play with Team USA, even if he just gets to practice with Team USA and be around some of those guys, because even though it's not going to be like the full Olympic roster, there's still going to be a ton of studs that come out and participate in that. So I think, if that does end up happening, I think that would be a great thing for Cade and for the team as a whole. And yeah, man, I think people are just underestimating what his return really is going to mean for the league.
But with Cade Cunningham, is the most interesting thing with him is I don't see people disrespecting him. I see people slow to say, okay, let's crown him right now. But every time I see like a write-up on Cade Cunningham or somebody outside of the Detroit media talking about him, they all state, we just got to get him on the court, but Cade Cunningham is that guy. And I love that because we don't generally have people talking about our guys like that. Now we have other teams that are interested in actually trading for our players, and we have media that actually believes, and people within the basketball world who believe our guy Cade Cunningham could be as good as we've been sitting here saying, hoping, and thinking he could be. This is what makes me excited about the fact that they shut him down early in the season and said, you know what, we have a plan. So let's just get you healthy, and let's just come back next year. We're gonna make sure that Ivy and Duren are ready to hit the ground running because they have to. These are high IQ basketball players. They're young players, but they're high IQ basketball players. They're connectors. The way that Ivy came in and answered the questions as it related to, can he play make? Can he shoot the three? Can he do anything in the mid-range? These are the types of players that Troy is bringing to the table, man. And for Cade to get this type of recognition, I'm happy for it, man. I'm happy. If it officially goes down that way, then I believe it is well deserved.
Any update here on the NBA draft or watching it live stream is a little delayed, so reactions will be live, but you actually seeing our reactions will not be, unfortunately. But Charlotte Hornets, the pick is officially in, number 2 overall pick. Early prediction before they select who you think it's going to be? They're split between Brandon and Scoot. Who do you think it should be?
I mean, it should be Scoot, but Hornet's going to Hornet. They're going Brandon Miller, baby.
All right, Sean, thanks for that. There you go. That's literally it. No, I'm with you. I mean, it's Scoot.
Hornets.
And I'm a big Brandon Miller guy, but right now, the question marks, dude, you take Scoot every day. And I think you have LaMelo and Scoot. That pairing could work. Me and Chris talked about that in heavyweights, man. It could work, right, Chris?
Yeah, 100%. Like their skill sets complementing, like their deficiencies can be masked by the other. LaMelo is tall, Scoot is small. Again, but Scoot is more compact and dynamic. He's a great finisher. LaMelo's a great shooter. Like it's a very good pairing that works on many levels. So I think it's a great pick. But like Sean said, and like I said earlier on the heavyweights, like Charlotte's going to Charlotte. Charlotte's going to Charlotte, and they're going to take Brandon Miller, which leaves Zion to Portland in play because the Pelicans really want Scoot. So I'm wondering if Portland's going to pick up the phone and finally find that trade for pick 3.
And Sean, Charlotte is so bad that, and again, we have no room to speak, but Charlotte's on a great team. They could technically use Brandon and Scoot. Brandon, they were one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league. So Brandon, and they need wings. So
yeah, I don't want to say this is like a terrible pick in the sense of like the player. Like Brandon Miller, from a talent standpoint, can absolutely be a star in this league. Like when you look at the archetype of like what makes a star and what you want to draft as a star, which by the way they did Hornet. It is Brandon Miller. The reality of it is they look a lot like Brandon Miller. But I think at the same time, like Scoot Henderson is a guy that's cut from a different cloth. He's a guy that, just is that star archetype.
Ooh.
Now, Brandon Miller was selected number 2 overall to Charlotte, and he got the phone call. And does this pretty much solidify Kool-Aid, Sean and Chris, Scoot to Portland?
Yeah.
This is pretty easy.
Yeah,
it has to be.
Yeah.
I don't know what this does or what this is as it relates to Dame's plans in Portland, but you got to pick Scoot. He's the talent, man. You can't pass him. He's not one of these guys that you can just, you know what, he doesn't kind of fit because we already have this. You got to take the talent there.
And if I'm the general manager of Portland, quite frankly, I think they're in a position where they should really consider maximizing what they can do with a rebuild. Because you talk about, as much as I love Dame and as much as I really think he is a guy that can win a championship, you look at what you can potentially build with trading him and then building around guys like Anthony Simons, like Shaedon Sharpe, like Scoot Henderson. Like those are 3 core guys right there that I like already. And you talk about what you could build over time with Chauncey Billups there as the head coach. Like I'm just saying it's a prime position to rebuild, but at the same time, I get the desire to want to win with Dame because, he did just have his best season of his life at this last year.
Yeah, he did.
And he's been loyal to them. He's been incredible for them. It just comes down to, can they really piece something together this quick? I just don't think they can.
And the only way that whole strategy of rebuilding while kind of contending for the playoffs works is if your star player is cool with that.
In the sports world, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, he to me, if I'm Dame Lillard, you get the hell out of there. You served your time. You served your sentence. You tried. You didn't bring a championship. Get the hell out of there. First plane out. Go to Miami. It's nice weather. Great weather.
Hey, there were some rumors that came out that he might be looking. I don't know how credible they are, but Listen, I don't really care. Portland has to do the right thing here and pick Scoot. What do you guys think about the Brandon Miller pick to Charlotte? Does it just?
Oh, I mean,
I'm excited to see
Yes,
Brandon Miller and LaMelo
absolutely.
from a basketball standpoint. Like,
Yeah.
I'm excited in that, and like I'm excited from that front. If they, they also might possibly bring back Miles Bridges as well, who has served a suspension, and if that is indeed the case. They have something interesting cooking there, but it's very akin to Detroit. If LaMelo's not healthy, if he's not on the court, then, it really doesn't matter. And, that's kind of the interesting thing. They're going to have to probably pay LaMelo a supermax extension of some form coming up. And, they're going to already be tied in cap-wise pretty quickly here. So
Yeah.
that's the difficulties they're going to have facing, because Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, just some not great contracts on board.
And you see a similar theme here. Like, for me, the first prospect that really caught my eye that I did the most research on before the lottery was Brandon Miller, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
It's why I like Hendricks. I mean, you see a common theme here for me. Brandon Miller, I was 100% behind taking. I wanted him in Detroit until you had the 5th pick.
Right.
I love it in Charlotte. I think if you're drafting BPA, it matters more for Charlotte right now because you have LaMelo Ball, and he struggled to stay healthy this season. He got banged up. But still, regardless, you got to find him a true number 2, or LaMelo be number 2 to somebody. You got to find a star, a superstar, especially you're picking 2. Is Brandon that guy? I think he can be. But to me, if you're talking upside with potential, especially Scoot, I know you take the bigger player always, which is Brandon Miller at 6'9". I mean, you can't teach length. He's 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan. You can't teach that. But I think he'll be fine in Charlotte. But if I'm Charlotte, I would go with Scoot because of that reason. That backcourt of Scoot and LaMelo, and now you have a little bit of an
Man, that could have
insurance
been
policy.
dynamic.
Like
That really could have been a dynamic
Yes.
backcourt pairing. But you're right.
it's
don't
a great
think-
pick though, regardless.
Yeah.
It'll be okay.
If they would have reached for one of the Thompson twins, and that would have been definitely the Charlotte. But I think overall, from a basketball standpoint, it fits, and it's not one of those things where it's like it just fits. No, I think Brandon Miller is a dynamic player.
Well, does this not help the argument I've been trying to make too with the whole fit versus me and Chris just kind of got done talking about it. The fit versus BPA. Like for Charlotte, it's a little different of a situation because for Detroit, you kind of know who you think will be those guys. But still, it's like they took at number 2, they looked at BPA and said, "Here's the bird for you. We're going fit."
Well, and I mean, there are executives who had Brandon Miller as the BPA, and if that is the overall assessment they made, then that's an interesting bet from their perspective. And I do see, like if you especially look at the fit and you think the talent is comparable, I see how that like leans you over very quickly. But I mean, at the same time, it just comes down to, there's just certain guys that I don't want to be the general manager who is the guy who had to pick this guy over that guy. And for me, Scoot Henderson is one of those guys that if I'm a general manager and I pass up on him, unless I'm getting Vic, I feel like I'm going to throw up at night. Like honestly.
Yeah, no, I
Honestly.
agree with you. Yeah.
Like that is something that can live on your resume forever. Like you don't
It is, man.
like
I feel you.
it's like being the general manager that picked Greg Oden before Kevin Durant.
Sheesh.
Like these are career defining decisions.
I thought you were gonna bring up one that was pretty famous here in 2000.
Well, we don't got to talk about
We won't
that.
talk about that. We won't
Kool-Aid,
bring that
today's a
up.
happy day. Happy thoughts.
Get back to my.
We don't got to get to
Kool-Aid
things that I
opinions.
repressed with my therapist years ago. Like, come on now, man. Happy days.
Human victory cigar, right? Oh man. I obviously, Houston is where the temperature starts to get hot here. I am very, very interested to see what Houston's going to do. Obviously, Portland is going to go with Scoot. There's no way that they can't. But I am very interested to see how Houston sees this thing. Obviously, Jarris Walker is from there. I haven't heard much noise about them potentially going after him. Obviously, Amen is the guy that is supposed to be slated. It's going to be interesting to see, though.
I think, with Houston in particular, I think Amen fits really well what they're doing too. Like when you talk about like BPA and availability, like you look at the athleticism that you could potentially have with Jalen Green and Amen Thompson. I mean, those guys on the fast break. I mean, I know we don't like to give Houston very much credit, but man, those guys in transition would be unreal. But yeah, Scoot Henderson is a Portland Trailblazer.
Yep, officially, they take Scoot Henderson. And again, you see the speculation between Portland shopping that pick versus staying put and taking it. I think in terms of their long-term play, it's a great move. You take Scoot Henderson. Whatever happens with Damian Lillard is what happens. I think, if anything, this kind of solidifies what's going to happen with Damian Lillard, if it doesn't already.
I mean, potentially.
I think it should. You start the new era with Scoot, but you never know. Portland,
I mean, Portland they're in full copium mode. They're telling you, no, we can make it work. We can make it work.
I compared, and Jalen posted this. Shout out to Jalen, by the way, killing it with photography and a ton of other content. Yeah. But he tweeted out the whole, why is Damian Lillard staying in Portland? I'm like, it's like going back to an ex. You know they're going to break your heart. Like, Damian keeps going back, but he knows he's going to get his heart broken.
They've been good to each other. I mean, look, they need to win, but they've been good to.
But he's settling.
You want this contract?
He's settling, Kool-Aid. You know it.
You know what?
I mean, listen,
selfish me, NBA me, I want to see him actually go out there, find one of these squads, team up with somebody, and just cook, man. I do want to see that. Selfishly, I want to see that.
Yeah,
I think he owes it to himself.
Yeah, part of me wants to see him stay because he does truly want to stay. He wants to win for Portland. You have to commend that. But at a certain point as well, a franchise has a time limit on how long they have to really pull the trigger and execute with a guy. Like with the Pistons, like they're being aggressive now. They're trying to build a good team around Caden Ivey now because you don't want to have those questions later in their careers. You don't want to have stars going, hey, where's the cavalry? Where's the help? And, like, especially in Portland, we just have to keep reevaluating their roster each and every offseason and saying, hey, you still haven't done it. What's your plan? And there isn't a feasible one. There just isn't. Just rebuild, you morons. God.
Instead of, like, what's your sources, it's what's your plan. And Portland just looks at you and goes, trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. There's no data. Just trust me, bro. I got it. I got it.
Me, bro.
But, again, you look at this draft now. Houston's picking next. I would be shocked if they don't take Amen here. I would. I mean,
they have to.
They have to.
Imagine they take Asar. Like just last second, they flip.
Because I think Jalen Green, I made this argument last year, and again, if you find me defending the Rockets, but I did it to some extent. For Jalen Green to thrive and those guys to thrive, you need a floor general, but also somebody that has upside, a ton of upside. You need someone to kind of command everything for Jalen. I don't think you give the ball to Jalen and just say, all right, let's go win a game. Like, imagine if, and I know it's kind of ironic, but if you had Cade next to Jalen, like, that's what I'm talking about. If Amen can be that type of facilitator.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool if he had the number 1 pick with the number 2 pick. That would go hard.
That would be great. But
absolutely right.
As a prototype, Amen, if you're talking Amen versus Asar, to me it's Amen because of his experience playing on ball, his experience creating for others. It just makes the most sense to me. Yep. It does. Yeah, why take another off-ball player?
Yeah, like having the secondary creator next side, like the true secondary creator. Because I mean, listen, Kevin Porter Jr. He should not be the secondary ball handler, especially on a winning team. And so getting a guy like Amen, who is as dynamic as he is, where now in Houston, you'll potentially have to pick your poison with both Jalen Green and Amen. It'll be hard to stay in front of both of those guys. I think it'll be interesting to see how they fit alongside Alperen Şengün and like if that pace is going to affect him in particular. Yeah. Just because Şengün's a little bit more of a traditional slower big.
I feel like they created a little bit of the dynamic by selecting an Amen Thompson that we thought that Charlotte Hornets could if they would have selected Scoot Henderson. I think Houston gets really, really interesting here. They have the coach that they wanted. We think a good coach in Ime. And they got some good young talent that I think is next level. I know we joke about Jalen Green and everything with the whole Houston-Detroit rivalry.
He's still going to be a good player.
But he's going to be a good pro. They got some good players out there. KPJ, we talked about the whole throwing the food. I think what it was like a bowl of oatmeal or soup at a coach.
But I don't like – I'm a little different on KPJ, to be honest with you. That's my point for taking on it.
I don't want him anywhere near the Pistons, but he's still going to go out there. And I think with a guy like Amen, to Sean's point, somebody who can actually control things a little bit better and make sure that these guys get their touches in ways that's more efficient for them. I think that you can get better out of KPJ by having a dynamic, guard set like Jalen Green, Amen Thompson. I like it.
And I know people are penciling in and just locking in, well, Ime Udoka is going to do amazing. He's a stud. Let's remember, for all intents and purposes, he's still a rookie head coach. And this is really his first situation where he's going to have to come in and help lay the groundwork from scratch himself. When he went into Boston, it's not like he was going into a situation where he was like helping establish a rebuild. He was taking a team that got to the conference finals and helping them get over the top to the finals, right? So don't get me wrong, absolutely great coach. But at the same time, that is going to be a test for him. That is going to be a challenge, especially with where things supposedly were at the end of last season.
Yeah, and I think there's a ton of coaches that go through that process. I think Monty, he's had experience in different situations, but to your point about Ime, first year as head coach, boom, NBA Finals. Like that, and then now going to the Rockets, very different situation. I think another coach there's a lot of coaches, honestly, in the NBA that go through that same situation where you go from contender and then you find out what it's like on the other side. Dwayne Casey, honestly, to his defense, kind of felt that too. Yeah. Eastern Conference Finals runs, and then here's Detroit. We don't really have a game plan for you. It's very different.
Well, and to Dwayne's credit, by the way, he was one of the voices that went to Tom and said, we need to do this rebuild. We need to be the ones changing the franchise, even knowing that was going to hurt his personal resume. He didn't care. He just did it for what was best for the team.
Yep.
So.
To be able to sacrifice kind of the later part of his coaching career, coming off of a Coach of the Year award, and really he said he fell in love with the people, the charm, the city, and the state of Michigan. You know, when people come here, that's what they do. He and his wife got invested as it relates to charity, as it relates to being out in the community. And then they got invested with the ideas that Tom Gores and Troy Weaver had as it related to this becoming a program that could do more than just be about basketball, but also make a huge impact in the community and get some wins here. That's why I'm grateful that he did commit here, because it gives us another high-level basketball mind in the room, and we can still then go out and get a coach like Monty Williams. I love it, man.
We just saw a tweet. I don't know if it's related to. Should we say it or should we?
By your reaction, it's a SAR.
You don't know that.
By your reaction, I know you.
You
Sean.
don't know anything.
Sean, I know you.
Look at Jalen, man.
By your reaction, it's a SAR. By your reaction, it has to be. And if it's a SAR, baby, you run up to that podium, you say Taylor Hendricks or Ahmed Thompson. All right, fine. You can have Ahmed Thompson. God, I'm gonna get my way one way or another. No, I'm just kidding. Well, it has to be a SAR. By the way you reacted, you sounded. We just went through why if they took a SAR, everything would be screwed.
I could have, if you guys just were like, "Oh, dang it, go ahead," I could have just told you by now. We wouldn't have run through this whole rigmarole.
Well, picks in. Adam Silver's reading off. If Sean, I swear to gosh, I have trust issues. If you lie to me right here, okay, I'm watching you. All right, let's go. Adam Silver's reading it off with the fourth pick.
The pick is in.
The Houston Rockets take. Okay. He just trolled me the whole time. Okay. All right. Makes sense. Great fit. I love it. I think Houston nailed this. No doubt to me, top 3 player.
Yeah.
He's gonna thrive in Houston.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
He will. Amy Udoka too, as his head dude. He's walking into a pretty good situation.
So it's Asar Thompson, right?
Per James Edwards III, the Detroit Pistons are reportedly targeting Asar Thompson. Nothing's final though, but it seems like Asar Thompson's gonna be the guy.
Did you just?
We were dancing around it, Jeff, come on now.
Listen, this is who we want, actually, man. I've been dancing around this thing. Jarris Walker.
You literally said 5 times. It's a SAR, isn't it?
But
it's a SAR, isn't it? It's a SAR by your reaction. I know it's a SAR.
Let's see.
You know what? I'm going to act like I don't know. How about that? Taylor Hendricks. Let's go.
But again, we talked about, is there a possibility? Could he fall to 9 or 10? Could he be there later in the lottery?
I don't think he makes it past Indiana. I don't. Just because he would be great in Indiana. So I don't know. He could. If he does, great. I would love it.
All right, well, I'm going to
walk away with Asar and Taylor Hendricks, Sean, I'll do the pod naked.
All right, well, I have good word. He's not going to Orlando. So
Solid.
That's not from a tweet, by the way. That's from sources. I have good word that he's not going to Orlando.
Okay, Sean.
So, and then more than likely, you look at Jarris Walker. He's probably a guy that fits at 7 for the Indiana Pacers at this point, right? We all agree on that. Wizards at 8. I don't think they're going with a guy like Taylor Hendricks, who's like a super, kind of like upside risk type thing. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. We'll see where it goes.
That's solid value, though, man. If you select Taylor Hendricks at 8, he's a 10, 12-year starter, above serviceable starter, and he can defend multiple positions, 6'9" wing, who can shoot. I mean, you're getting a great pick at 8. You are. You are. But we'll see. Ahmed Thompson, he's already the pick. Number 5, Detroit picks next. Stay tuned. You're going to want to see this reaction. I know it'll be a little delayed, but I'm telling you the emotions will be live, so I can't wait for this.
It'll be live. It'll be raw. It'll be something you wish you saw.
I can't wait, man.
That sounds like Grady Dick to me. You said raw and something about being raw. I don't know. Don't. Is this another tweet you read about Grady Dick?
Quit talking about the dripping dick, Jeff.
All right. As long as Grady Dick gets selected 5th overall, then you know what? We're going to end the show right away. But other than that.
You've been hanging with the heavyweights too much, Jeff.
I did one show with the heavyweights, and now apparently Grady Dick's the GOAT. I don't know. It is what it is. Pistons are on the clock, 4 minutes right now.
Let's go. I'm pumped up, man. I'm pumped up. I feel like we need to get the crew in here and everything and really get this thing going. It's got to be Asar Thompson for me. I kept going back and forth, like I keep saying. Hendricks, Walker, these guys are ready to play, I think, day one. But I feel like Asar Thompson has something to show us.
Yeah, man. I think it's just the perfect mix of, we talk about best player available, but also taking the swing and going for the upside as well. Like you talk about, Asar Thompson is the perfect mix of being ready to play, fit alongside Caden Ivey, but it doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands. But at the same time, with respect to guys like Jarris Walker, can do more athletically, has things in his tool bag that just few guys who enter the NBA draft do. Like, the Thompson twins are both guys who, in next year's draft, would both be number 1 overall pick caliber players.
And by the way, I don't think there's an actual literal rivalry with Houston because I think that gets kind of skewed sometimes. I think it's more just Jalen.
Yeah, it's more of a Twitter fun thing.
It's a stupid. But regardless, though, imagine now both the twins.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's not a real rivalry because, again, rivalries happen with good teams. You got to be in the playoffs. You got to be playing each other. Like, I don't think it's a rivalry. But still, imagine the Twitter conversations between Rockets Twitter and Pistons Twitter. Man, they're going to try and take every inch.
Well,
both sides will.
Well, just how special it is in general that we have two twins not only going in the top 5, but going back-to-back, from what it seems, going 4 and 5. What those guys potentially can do in the league. Like the last time we had twins that were like this high in the lottery were what? The Morris twins back in like 2010. And then other than that, it was the Lopez twins with Brooke and Robin. These guys are going to be better than them. Like with all due respect, these guys are both going to be studs.
And Bobby Marks has right now the current team needs. It's wing depth and help for Kate Cunningham. It's very simple.
Yeah.
And you see the prospects he has rated on the screen as well. Bick is in. The decision has been made. Troy Weaver, it didn't take him too long.
Oh, yeah.
I would assume this is his brother, unless I'm completely thrown off. But we'll see. They're showing all the video, the footage of them too. I can't wait. I'm curious to see how both of them thrive away from each other. I think that's the biggest thing I'm going to be paying attention to. But here we go.
Yeah,
Pistons, although they're the worst record you pick at 5, it still doesn't seem right. It doesn't.
Yeah, it was the lowest fall.
It doesn't seem right.
Yeah, it was the lowest fall in NBA lottery history, and the one team that was punished for tanking all those years was the team that refused to tank during the time that the 76ers did it. But ladies and gentlemen,
here we go.
The pick is in. The Detroit Pistons.
Let's rock.
Are selecting.
It's got to be Asar, right?
It's got to be.
Look, man, I feel like I've been trying to keep myself, as it relates to Asar Thompson, measured. Look, we're going to go with one of those guys that just makes sense. And I like Walker, I like Hendricks, but I really feel like Asar Thompson offers some star potential, man. I really do.
Yeah. Most definitely
Here
Here we go.
Adam
Silver, that Martian-looking motherfucker's on the stage.
Let's go. Adam Silver with the 5th pick. Let's just get it over with. We know who it is.
Come on.
Let's go!
Yeah, that's a good one.
Got the Lions Den over there going crazy. Got the heavies over there.
We talked a minute ago. We talked a minute ago about players that you would throw up if you passed on. Asar Thompson fits that bill.
Yeah,
everything that he brings day one from a physicality standpoint, how great he is on the defensive end, the baller that he is on the offensive end. I know that people didn't get to watch this guy as much because he was an overtime elite, but I am telling you, in 2 weeks' time, when this guy's playing in summer league, you're going to see a show.
Yeah, and by the way, even for me, I mean, I love Taylor Hendricks, but you can't be upset, at least with the philosophy of this pick. Troy already gave you the nuggets at his press conference. He already talked about, I don't want to bunt. I want to go for the long ball. Asar, the only prospect left on the board, I think has the highest long ball, the guy who can become a superstar. I may like Taylor Hendricks, but you can't deny that this pick, until proven otherwise, until we visit it in 2 to 3 years, so far right now, it's a great pick. Chris, what's your reaction to it?
It's a great pick, man.
What are you thinking?
So, I mean, look, I
know the shooting concerns are there.
I'm still firm in the camp of Cam Whitmore, unless those medicals really are scary. just because I think the Pistons' biggest need was shooting. And again, I think one of your 3 or 4 best players has to be an elite shooter in order to be a championship caliber team. At least one of them. Like, spacing is going to get very weird if these guys don't figure it out from 3. If they can all be respectable, cool. But you need one that's got to be elite, because if Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and Asar Thompson, these 3 guys are all kind of floating in that range of good enough that you got to respect, but one of them goes cold for a series, all of a sudden that changes the defense. The opposing defense can do all sorts of things. It changes the spacing dynamics of the floor. But Asar does have a great feel for the game. I like that. I think he is a high IQ guy. I think he is a high motor guy. And I think he's shown with his playing with his brother that he will not only fit in, but also step up. You know, we talked about the MVPs that he won, but he, for the most part of the season, took a backseat to his brother. So I like the pick. I don't personally love it. I just was in love with Cam Whitmore, but you know, time will tell if I'm right or wrong on that.
The jump shot is a thing that you know, historically, especially with young players, is a thing that can develop with time and that can come. Right. Obviously, it's not with every single prospect, but I think, you know, you bet on the person, you bet on, you know, the individual, and Asar Thompson and Amen Thompson both are guys who are, you know, who are not coming to take part, but are coming to take over. Guys who are both hungry and want to be known as all-time greats, and the things that they do bring to the table. Like, yes, you want to make sure, and you want these guys to be able to hit from the perimeter and to be able to, you know, be dynamic from all spots of the court. But you talk about the type of player that, you know, like the things that you can't teach are a lot of the things that he has, which is that tenacity on the defensive end, that basketball IQ, the vision for his size, the multiple different positions he can play. I mean, this is a guy that, you know, he's going to be able to do a lot of different things for this team. He's going to be, you know, I think he's one of these stars that can kind of be a utility player, and I'm excited to see how he can develop. I will say
that, you know, this now, if you are trading back into the draft, you are going for an elite shooter. Like, that's what you're targeting.
And I think if you can get a guy like Taylor Hendricks who brings that solid shooting, like you said, Chris, but also can continue to bring that versatility and length and be another defensive stopper, I think that would be, you know, I think that's exactly what Troy's working on right now as we speak.
I agree. And by the way, just to address some of these comments, because I want to get to everybody. Everyone's fired up right now. Whether, you know, it's about him playing guard, which that's what he's listed as. He's going to be a wing in the NBA. Yeah, he's going to be a wing.
Positions are dead, man.
Yeah, so everyone forgetting about. But the other thing too, Blue Lantern says y'all act like we're watching TV and listening to you. I'm listening to you at work. You do the same crap during the line draft. For everybody that thought we spoiled it, we've been saying Asar before any of these reports came out. That's just our predictions.
Yeah,
I can't help we're right.
Yeah, we
didn't spoil anything. That's just what we thought would happen, and it played out that way. Even though I wanted Taylor Hendricks, it's not about spoiling anything. We have to voice our opinions, and our opinion was that if Amen goes 4, Asar will most likely go 5. That's it. So Asar's the pick. Guess what? With Troy's way of thinking, if it's boom or bust, we're going for the best, the highest upside left on the board. It's Asar Thompson. Even me, who's in love with Taylor Hendricks, can admit that.
By the way, it's going to be Anthony Black here to the Orlando Magic. Per sources.
Now, that makes a lot of sense because they really wanted Asar, and that was one of the things I
thought
was potentially
Kool-Aid.
Yes, sir.
Didn't I tell you earlier today?
He trains with
sir.
Yes,
sir.
He trades in Ashton's circle, doesn't he? He trains with one of those guys.
He does, and he was
his good friend. I can't remember his
name. By rank management.
Yes.
Yep.
Shout out rank management.
He shot up the draft boards. Now you talk about the players that they have connections to between Cade Cunningham and Anthony Black, among others. Shout out to rank management, man. And they've been right on some things. They told us look out for Anthony Black before he shot up the draft board.
I love that fit. You talk about a lot of the uncertainty that they have at the guard position. They still have to figure out a lot of things with Jalen Suggs, Markelle Fultz. But now you add Anthony Black into the position. Again, another guy who's listed as a guard, but he played 4 at times at Arkansas. He's a guy who's insanely, you know, physical and another really solid defensive player. You put this guy alongside Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, you're going to get a really chippy, athletic, competitive team with the Magic. I really like this pick.
And there's no doubt they win. I'm going with the guy that we believe in. That's the Magic's guy. But also, they drafted Jalen Suggs. They traded for Markelle Fultz. They just who's Greg Anthony's son.
Cole
What's his
Cole
name?
Anthony.
Cole
Cole
Anthony.
Anthony,
Excuse
yep.
me. They had Cole Anthony. They're like, you know what? Anthony Black's that dude. Like defensively, he's solid. He's 6'7", point guard. Like future, the kind of what the NBA is going in. And again, efficient player. Not the greatest shooter, but still, regardless.
Solid facilitator.
Yeah, solid facilitator. So Orlando said, hey, we might have drafted guards, but Anthony's that dude.
I
He
think
goes 6.
Yeah, and I think in particular too with how Jalen Suggs has been, I think this is like a perfect guy to go and like compare, because I think, you know, with Suggs in particular, I think he does have that higher upside to be like a potential like future scorer. I think he could be like a Kyle Lowry where he's a bit of a late bloomer in his career and can still be really solid. But I mean, you're getting a surefire thing. You know, at the very least, Anthony Black is going to be able to come in and play a solid 25, 30 minutes a night and play really good basketball for you. Again, I mean, Orlando's building something really good too, man. Great pick by the Magic.
Yeah, I agree, and I thought that was part of the Asar stuff originally. Was I thought it was maybe a potential Troy Weaver smokescreen, because it was really linked early that Orlando was counting on getting one of the Thompson twins. So I thought maybe that was a smokescreen to kind of hold them to the fire for those 6 and 11 draft picks. But ultimately, obviously, Troy wouldn't have made that selection if he didn't love Asar. And this is a great backup plan. I think Anthony Black is a great player. He's a connector. And when you look at him, I see his ceiling as what you saw the good of Lonzo Ball. I think it's his ceiling.
I like
He's
that.
a great
That's
defender.
a good comp.
If he can get that three-point shot figured out, you get great defense, great passing, and a nice spot-up shooter. He's going to play within the offense. He's not going to be one of your 3 best players, but he's probably a damn good 4th or 5th best player on your team. I like him. I'm betting on this guy. This guy, year 8, year 9, is going to be on a team that's doing something special, whether it's on the team that drafted him or a team traded for him, because he could be a missing piece. I really like this guy.
He's
Bet
gonna
on
be-
the smart guys. They figure it out.
He's going to be one of those rookies that vets play against, and they're just going to like look at how hard he's going. They're going to be like, who the hell is this kid? Like, why do I have to deal with this? You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
it's going to be like, they're going to be annoyed by how much energy he brings every night.
And Chris has been consistent with Anthony Black. I mean, we and you have had conversations about him as well. Taylor Hendricks, we've talked about it all. And also for Anthony Black, just for the Magic's defense, not really a defense, it just makes sense. He's far better and has a higher upside than anybody they have at the guard position. Cole Anthony, higher upside than him. Even though I like Cole Anthony, but Anthony Black at his size, what he can do, like him with Paulo Banchero, to your point, Sean, that's a duo right there.
We might, I don't want to like spoil anything because we're still watching the draft, but it looks like we could have our first movement of the night potentially coming up here.
Listen, man, I'm over here getting this article done. I was telling you in between it, like, yeah, there's some movement going on. And there's some players that look like they might be available a little bit lower than we thought.
It looks like I am shocked by this. The pick by Indiana is getting announced right now. It is Shalale, because so now you have a situation. Listen, I'm sorry, that last name's chalk. It's just not happening. But he's actually getting traded to Washington. So
Washington.
But even weirder, Jeff, Taylor Hendricks, Jarris Walker, both still on the board, meaning that likely one of those guys could be available at 10. One of those guys is going to be available at 9. I mean, you look at these guys who are starting to fall. Cam Whitmore is in that mix still. I mean, who had Bilal going over Cam Whitmore?
That's an upside pick. And I feel like Washington has done this plenty of times. I mean, they drafted foreign players that, you know, have upside. Hasn't worked out, but maybe they hit on one here with Bilal.
I mean, they do have a new front office. They got the GM from the Los Angeles Clippers, a guy who, you know, by the way, the guy who immediately came in and shipped Blake to Detroit. But he is. You know, there is some reliable basketball minds in DC now, but it is. I'll say this much: I didn't have that on my bingo card for the draft.
And by the way, shout out to Kevin
I don't
Jeffrey,
like that
who
at
does not watch what we do. I love it. He says Troy Weaver can do no wrong, according to the Woodward Sports Crew. Man, you got to tune into content, my man. You got to. I mean, we talk about what Troy's botched. We talk about Killian Hayes.
We talked about the hot seat today on the heavyweights.
I mean, we just talked about him being on the hot seat today.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like, if you want to say something, say it, but you got to do your research first. What do you have?
What I was going to say is it's not about if he's going to be perfect. It's about if he's
no
somebody that
GM's
can clean
perfect.
it up.
Yes.
You know, is he somebody that can come in and show, if I have a mistake, I can clean that up. So if we want to talk about Killian Hayes, he went in that same draft and then drafted Bay and Stewart, and then next year got Cade, then the year after that got Ivy. These are things I'm looking at. He signed Bagley and then still wound up with Jalen Duren. When people thought that...
Well, hold on, Kool-Aid. You're kind of kissing his ass.
Oh, I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
Which, by the way,
Just
guys...
by acknowledging he got talent.
Which,
don't
by the way,
kiss
guys...
his ass too much.
Which, by the way, guys, let's let this sink in real quick. Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren. Those
I
four
love the
guys
star potential,
alone,
brother.
the athleticism, the speed, the bounce, the versatility on the defensive end, like a lot of the things that these guys are going to be able to bring. Tell me that isn't a competitive young core. Tell me that isn't a competitive young roster.
If I do, am I kissing Weaver's ass? Just want to clarify.
Listen,
Well,
bro,
I mean,
posted
listen.
that just
If
a
I
few minutes ago.
Listen.
acknowledge talent, is that kissing
I mean,
his
real
ass? I just
talk,
want to clarify.
We'll criticize Troy Weaver when he deserves it, but at this point, he's drafted more young talent, more solid young talent in his 3 or 4 years than any Detroit Piston general manager in the last 20. So, until that's no longer the case, we're going to keep giving him credit, especially on nights like this where you walk out with Asar Thompson, who could potentially be one of the best players in the draft.
Yeah, and let's talk about it because they say that they're trying to restore, and they liken this thing to what? The bad boy Detroit Pistons. When Trader Jack got here and they selected Isaiah Thomas, it wasn't just all, hey, we're selling off to, a championship now. That's not how this thing went down. They lost for a couple years pretty badly with Isaiah Thomas. And they didn't win a championship, and they got Joe Dumars, 4 years, 3-4 years after they got Isaiah Thomas. The way that Troy Weaver is doing things right now, he's kind of pressed an accelerant on this rebuild and gotten a lot of looks at a lot of talent in a short amount of time, to the point that now we've said this. Now he can go and add depth. Now he can go and augment. Now we have this core, and I believe that Asar Thompson gives them this kind of young, high potential, star potential young core. I really believe in this. Listen. He's going to make his mistakes. Every GM is. But we've seen some GMs compound their mistakes with more mistakes and then even worse mistakes. That's not what I've seen from Troy Weaver yet. When I see that, trust me, we'll call it out. If you want me to sit here and say, you should have picked Tyrese, how many teams passed on Halliburton? There were legit questions.
And with all due respect, if you were told in the first 3 years you were going to have guys like Cade and Jaden Ivey, but also Monty freaking Williams was going to become your head coach, are you telling me you're not taking that every single day and twice on Sunday? I just don't know what there is to complain about. I mean, yes, the win total wasn't what you wanted last year, but at the same time, that was due to a very deep league. We've seen more parity than we've seen in the history of the league. You also saw what happened when Cade Cunningham went out of this lineup. But, I mean, you look at what they have shaping up right now, this is going to be a team that can take a next step. This is a team that is ready to start turning a corner.
Kool-Aid, I wanna ask you this because
Yes, sir.
I've been meaning to get to the bottom of this question, and nobody's better to ask it than you because you're plugged in. Obviously the coaching search went on a while before the Pistons settled on Monty Williams, and they settled on him pretty recently before the draft. So obviously Monty Williams coming in will have a strong voice within the organization, a respected voice within the organization. How much do you think the draft approach, if anything, changed when Monty Williams got aboard? Do you think there was some sort of difference in opinions, not in a bad way, but more so in we're bringing you up to speed, this is where we're at, how do you feel? Or maybe was it early on Troy Weaver had his cards close to his vest and felt like this is what we're planning on doing, and they had those kind of conversations in the beginning stages of hiring Monty Williams? How much do you think that was involved?
Yeah, I obviously, if you're going to hire Monty Williams, you let him know what your plans are. Remember early on, there was a report that Asar Thompson had gotten a promise from a team. And I know that Monty, in his press conference, stated that his job is to come in here first and learn these players, learn these rosters, and realistically carry out this vision that the organization is setting forth. And then he will obviously, from a coaching standpoint, have the ability to take this talent and fit them best. And honestly, he's had great success with this, with players of these types. So I'm looking forward to what Monty Williams can do. I'm looking forward to the creatives. Think about the playmakers that he has on his team.
Yeah.
But they're not just playmakers. All of our playmakers are finishers now. That's what I see them doing. They're also finishers. They're scorers. Look at Jaden Ivey. Who knew he could come out there and just start dishing out 8 assists a game in the second half of the season? Who knew that he was going to be able to come in and really look like a good playmaker? What's good, Sean?
I was just over here a second ago giving the Washington Wizards credit for actually having competent basketball minds, but they just allowed Indiana to trade 1 pick back with them and still end up with Jarris Walker. Jarris Walker's an Indiana Pacer, guys. The
Isn't that
Washington
what we
Wizards
said?
traded a
Man.
pick up to go get a guy that I didn't even know was slated to go in the top 10, and then the Pacers still get Jarris Walker at 8. I mean, that's great value, but also you talk about, like what the Pacers are building, and very relevant for the Pistons. I mean, in division rival, Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, Jarris Walker, Miles Turner. Indiana's looking pretty solid right now themselves.
Yeah.
I just don't understand the Bilal Coulibaly. Like, the only reason you would draft him this high is got to be because he's Victor's teammate, and you're trying to recruit Victor to your team. Like, I don't get.
Well, like, what smoke screen did Indiana lay that like he was gonna be picked there? Like, what? Like, why?
He was never. He was. Now, Bilal Coulibaly was shooting up draft boards. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think anybody had that guy within the top 10. So for Washington to trade up just to take a guy that was definitely going to be there the next pick, because obviously Indiana was always going to take Jarris Walker or Taylor Hendricks, whichever they preferred. So I think that's a terrible move for Washington. Unless Bilal Coulibaly ends up hitting a crazy upside, or he lands you Victor Wembanyama, and Victor Wembanyama gets over San Antonio, demands a trade to Washington. I don't understand that play for Washington at all.
Yeah.
And we have now Utah on the clock with the 9th overall pick. Utah at this point, you know what? The biggest. Now we're going to get to the Grady Dick conversation. Just take Grady Dick here in Utah. He fits in. He looks like a Mormon.
I hate to rain on your parade here, Jeff, but
he looks like a Mormon.
I hate to rain on your parade here, Jeff, but this looks
Taylor
like
Hendricks?
This looks like a Taylor Hendricks home
No,
to
I
me.
mean, in all seriousness, yeah.
I
mean,
and with that,
best player on the board is
especially with him going to Utah now. I think I don't see Utah. I don't see a reason why they would trade that pick. So now, especially with Walker being off the board and with Hendricks being off the board, it makes you start to question where, if at all, Detroit would trade up in this lottery. I personally think the players that they would have traded up for, I think they all just went off the board.
Yeah,
personally.
That's where I'm going with it. Is Cam Whitmore at 10 with Dallas? Is that something Detroit wants to pursue, or is that something Dallas is happy to take because of the upside? I mean, if you're Dallas, you need to swing for the fences 110%.
And I mean, that would
if you're
be
keeping the pick.
I mean, that would be a pretty high value get if you're somehow able to get Bojan for Cam Whitmore. But at the same time, I mean, reports suggest. And again, you don't want to go solely off the workout. It sounds like when Cam Whitmore was in Detroit, it sounds like there was some things left to be desired.
Yeah, that does make sense ultimately, but I wonder, if Detroit is on the phones working that 10th pick, because obviously there was some interest there, but maybe Dallas is not expecting Cam Whitmore to be there, and they're hanging up the phone, and they're happy because they get a guy with potentially, if everything goes right, all NBA caliber ceiling, and then you pair that with Kyrie and Luka, and if you were Dallas, you wanted to keep this pick for that level of prospect, but I don't know. It's just interesting to see if the Pistons would make that call or not.
Because
knowing Cam's
and
at
I
the board.
kinda-
we got what, Cam and Hendricks still on the board?
Just Cam.
We'll
probably.
see. Yeah, we'll see. Because the pick
Assuming,
is it officially it's Taylor Hendricks?
It's going to be Taylor Hendricks.
Well,
I mean,
more
like
likely
I don't
than
want
not.
to. I don't want to like.
I mean, that's not a shock. I personally, I think the best player on the board is Taylor Hendricks, and Cam Whitmore for the upside.
He just looks like a Utah Jazz player too. Like he just
Grady
like you
Dick
could just
doesn't?
no. Well, I mean he does obviously, but I mean like you could just picture Taylor
kidding, I'm
Hendricks in that really weird like blocky like large font. Like you could just see the Utah
Him
on
and
his
Walker
chest.
Kessler is a nice front court.
Well, I did say earlier in the show if there was one player I think would fall to where the Pistons could potentially trade up, it would be Cam Whitmore. Just because, again, there's concerns there injury-wise, but still, I mean, Chris, you've been consistent with Cam Whitmore, too. He's your guy. That's your number one player.
Yes,
At
sir.
least at 5.
Yeah.
For the Pistons, not number one overall. I don't want to get you in that forest fire.
Yeah.
But regardless, we kind of talked about it earlier. It's now a possibility. There's still some guys left on that board. No doubt about it.
Yeah, yep. And
For
that's,
Troy
that's
Weaver
kind of what
to
I'm
go up
waiting
and
to
grab.
see. That's what I'm waiting to see. What he's going to do here. I know there's some guys later in this lottery as well, like Michigan's Kobe Buffkin,
Right.
as well, that some people are kind of high on. Look, Jay Billis has him, 9 on his big board. It's going to be interesting to see what the Pistons are thinking. I want to see Troy Weaver get busy. I don't know if Asar Thompson is his only or what he's considering his home run pick. I do believe, like I said, with the star potential there, I am grateful that that's the pick. But I am still holding out hope that he goes back in and gets a little bit busy.
I will say, though, the one thing to not necessarily to rain on that parade or poo-poo that idea. Like, I definitely think Troy's going to keep the phones active. I'm sure that there are some guys that he's looking at and monitoring certain situations.
Yep.
But it is important to remember that this team is also looking to turn the corner, and part of that, they did say they wanted to get a little older, that they wanted to add some more veteran pieces. And so one aspect could be they could want to keep Bojan around at least through the first part of the year. They might want to start the season with some of these veterans in-house because, I mean, let's be honest, they do need to have some older guys on the court. So I think, even at Detroit, obviously I still think Troy's going to be shopping. He's always calling. That's how Troy Weaver, that's how he does his business.
It's aggressive.
But at the same time, I also don't think it would be a massive shock if we didn't walk out with another lottery player, just in the sense of you want older guys on the court as well.
That's the other part of it. And I think we talked about this before in From Half Court, too. Like the idea of trading back up and getting another player, but also versus how much younger do you want this roster to get? I think the argument, and we've talked about it at nauseum on From Half Court, you can go check that out.
Shameless plug.
But regardless, there's the balance between, yes, you want more young talent, especially in a draft where guys could fall, but do you want to get younger is the balance.
You don't just stay younger. They have cap space. They have other assets that they can trade, and there are veterans that they can go out there and get, especially with the rest of their exceptions and things. So getting another player or two in this draft that you think fills a hole day one, like if it is a guy that you are like high on, if it's a Troy Weaver guy, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. But yeah, you want to see this team run it out there with NBA players. That's something that I said today with Lindsey and Darren. The Pistons need NBA players, more of them on their roster to complement a guy like Cade, who's ready to go. Mm-hmm. These guys, they're not resting on their laurels. Cade looks like he's tired of losing already.
Yeah, it's
man.
Taylor Hendricks officially. So I interrupt you. It's Taylor Hendricks, my guy.
Nah,
Yeah, I
you
saw
gotta
Sham's tweet at like 5 minutes ago. I didn't want to break your heart, but I mean,
Hey, it's all good, Taylor. You're going to thrive out in Utah. They got a great coaching staff, so I think he'll be fine. You get to play behind Lauri Markkinen. I don't know what that fit, I guess,
Good
will
front
look like,
court
but
with
regardless.
Walker
with
Kessler.
kinda.
I see Taylor as a 4, but you never know.
Yeah.
Maybe play
But-
alongside him.
Yeah, to stamp your point though, man, Troy talked about it. They need veteran players on this team. They do. They need some guys, and I'm hoping that there's a mix of that. If he's not done, I'm hoping it's for somebody that he's just like, they're gonna add right away. But I'm interested in what the offseason strategy is from here.
Yeah.
Because I like Bojan. He was brought here originally and initially to complement Cade Cunningham. That was why he was here. And he said it. Everything in that Hoops Hype article, everything kind of surrounded and revolved around Cade Cunningham, and he understood that. That was one of the things we talked about when they made the switch between Jeremy Grant and Bojan Bogdanovic, is how this was going to help Cade Cunningham from a veteran presence. People who know where to be, people who know the little different wrinkles on NBA defense. They know how some of these referees call the game. They know where to be on the court. Some of these players know the dead spots on the court, man. It's just like they just understand the NBA, and you need those guys to win basketball games.
And another underrated aspect that Asar Thompson brings, the fact that he was in Overtime Elite for a couple of years, that he's been a professional basketball player for a couple years now. He's not coming in having to learn how to be a pro. They've gotten taught in finances. They've gotten taught in how to handle media. They know they know how to handle their diet, how to handle their workout regimen and routine. They have certain things that they're already ahead on. And even though that's not always the biggest deal on the face of the planet, it is a big deal when you are integrating into a league like the NBA. And so, you have guys, you have a guy like Asar who's going to be able to come in and, again, not have to have the pressure of being the franchise guy or having all the weight on his shoulders, but rather just to come in, play his game, and to grow alongside these guys. I mean, man, you talk about, we were talking about this team a year ago before draft night, how unathletic we were. Well, a year later, adding Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and Asar Thompson, somehow one of the guys who was, one of the only guys who is nearly as athletic as those guys in this year's draft. I mean, man, the bounce in the LCA the highlight plays are going to be plentiful.
That's something that I want. I thought that this team has done a good job at, adding speed, adding a little bit of athleticism to his roster. And Asar Thompson just absolutely accelerates that. Now you're looking at them having the ability to put out 5 guys who can go out there and kind of be versatile in their roles. When you're talking about a lineup of Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren, and who else are you playing with? Are you going?
You
with?
could throw Beef Stew in there if you can stretch the
Stew?
floor. You could potentially put James Wiseman in there if you want to really bring some length and really punish them in the paint.
Yeah.
But also you think about the possibilities of bringing in a guy like Jeremy Grant, how he would fit us alongside a guy like Asar Thompson. Those different lineups you could potentially throw out there. I mean, man, it's just.
I love what it's going to do for their ability to play basketball, to get up and down the court, and, truly do this transition thing. But in the half court is where I'm most excited. Bringing in Monty Williams, who has shown some proficiency with half court offenses, I am very, very happy about what he can do with a team full of young go-getters who are also high IQ basketball players with athleticism and speed.
Yes.
I kept saying, it seemed weird that the Pistons would have a guy like Jaden Ivey, but how many lobs do you remember him getting? How many lobs do you remember Jalen Duren getting?
But you know what else it is? These look like a modern NBA version of what a Pistons team should be. You talk about the restoration and Troy Weaver putting a lot of the pieces together. Each draft, the vision gets clearer and clearer, right? All these guys are cut from a very similar cloth, are all bring in an intensity and a desire and getting in the gym, but also wanting to be great and wanting to be great in particular parts, like Asar, very defensive oriented, just very, very grit and grind type guy. Cade Cunningham, very similar way. Jaden Ivey literally wanted to be in Detroit, has family ties in Detroit.
Right.
And then you just compare them to Pistons teams of the past, but also with how the league has evolved. This team just fits that. It fits the ilk of evolving, but also what Troy Weaver talked about, restoring, putting together the image of what a Pistons team should look like in the modern NBA.
Yeah, and he's hinted at this several times when he first got here. It's we don't want to just get there. We want to get there and stay there. So we all knew, at least if you paid attention to what Troy said, that this would be a longer project, especially what was given to him when he got here. I know people would like a rebuild in 2 years. It doesn't work like that, given what the roster looked like when he got here. I think right now you could say safely you're very happy with what happened.
We got a trade, by the way.
Definitely happy.
The 10th overall pick has been traded.
How much did we see these guys do pretty much of anything last year as it related to pick and rolls, dribble handoffs, lobbing the ball up there? It's I felt like we saw more of that during the Andre Drummond years, and it seemed like they kind of got away from that. But to talk about this kind of having the restoration or the rebuild be something that can continue to go on.
V-Mix just literally completely gave out.
Dang.
He's restarting. We can come back up and live in a little bit. We can get this back up and going. It'll just be 2 separate streams, unfortunately. This shit happened.
Sheesh.
Do you think we just go? Do you think we just go live on Woodward Pistons?
You want to just call it here? Just call it here. You go live in the back.
I say you guys just start.
So we don't look
back
because if we start back up, we admit it was like.
Yeah.
Just do it. I say just go here then. Because there's still a second pick. Are you guys staying for the second pick?
Well,
Not the second pick.
31.
Oh, I'd say you guys could keep going here.
What do you want to do? Go through the
God, Cam still wasn't taken.
I think you go live in the back, dude. Just go on
Yeah.
Woodward Pistons. Just
I-
go live.
I
We
think-
got the 5th pick covered.
Because we'd only be going live for a few minutes and then going for a post show anyway. Because you eventually have to go over to the facility, right?
I'm looking at the clock right now. I'm actually supposed to have been over there, or at least been on the way over there.
Oh, they can still hear it? Yeah. Oh, maybe they'll